I'm Ankita Robin and welcome to SG Global News. From a radical Christian revival in the Muslim-majority nation of Kosovo to Pope Francis's appointment of Sister Simona Brambilla MC as the first female prefect in the Vatican, we have many stories to cover. Kosovans are returning to their roots, reclaiming what they had lost with the arrival of Ottomans in the 14th century. Until then, Catholicism was the prominent religion in the area. Under the Ottoman rule, many were forced to convert to Islam. Today, 93% of the total population are Muslims. But a small number of ethnic Albanian Christian activists are driving a major revival in Kosovo, urging their kin to return to the church. Kosovo, a small country sandwiched between the Balkan mountains, once dominated the front pages for being embroiled in a senseless war. It is now making headlines for witnessing a Christian revival that any Muslim-majority country has seen in recent times. Andrew Higgins, a correspondent for the New York Times, in his recent report has observed an uptick in Kosovans embracing Christianity and denouncing their Islamic roots. Despite Catholicism being recorded as the religion of just 2.1% of the total population, Catholic churches in the mountainous part of the country are seeing long queues of people waiting to get baptized in holy water. Father Fran Kulash, who serves a small parish on the outskirts of the capital city of Pristina, says, along with the people's wish to be saved, the need to revive the country's pre-Islamic past serves as the driving reason behind the Kosovans' growing desire to accept the Christian faith. Even though more than 90% of the country's inhabitants identify themselves as Muslims, Kosovo's Christian past can be traced to the Byzantine era, where Catholicism flourished in the region. Under the Ottoman Empire, which lasted until 1912, most of the Catholics had no choice but to switch their faiths to Islam, fearing persecution from the Islamic rulers of the empire. But a small minority of Catholics decided to cling to their faith despite being chastised by their Islamic neighbors. After being engulfed in a brutal war in the 90s and ethnic tensions in the early 2000s, Kosovo started enjoying relative stability after gaining sovereign freedom from Serbia in 2008. Kosovo's Catholic past, along with Western NGOs' presence in the nation and neighbor Serbia's Orthodox influence, have brought a change in the country's thought and culture, and many have shunned their Islamic roots. A huge number of Catholic reverts from Islam view the Catholic Church as an inherent part of Kosovan identity, unlike the Islamic past, which the majority of them view as a foreign intrusion. Meanwhile, the surge in popularity of Christianity is not taken lightly by Muslim leaders, and most of them consider it a work done by foreign agents to spread hatred against Islam. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, stepped down from his position. He said that the country deserves a real choice in the upcoming election and noted the internal instability as the reason behind his resignation. Trudeau had earned the ire of Catholics when he accused the Catholic Church over unproven discovery of mass graves of Indigenous children and refused to condemn or control vandalism against the churches in the state.
Justin Trudeau announced his resignation as Canada's Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party on Monday. He will continue as the Prime Minister until a new leader for the Liberal Party is chosen, and the Parliament will remain suspended until March 24th. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, Trudeau said in his resignation speech, and it has become clear to me that if I am having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. Trudeau came to power in 2015 after 10 years of Conservative Party rule. The resignation follows growing criticism on his policies within his own party and discontent among Canadians due to rising housing, food and healthcare costs and unchecked immigration, following the unproven discovery on May 27, 2021 of 215 suspected unmarked graves near the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. Dozens of Catholic churches were burnt down or vandalized across Canada. Justin Trudeau's controversial statement that public anger against the federal government and institutions like the Catholic Church was fully understandable only came across as support to the perpetrators. Between June and July 2021 alone, 68 churches were burnt down, and intense mainstream media coverage added fire to the fury. However, several actual excavations did not show the presence of any bodies, and remarkably, no excavations sanctioned by the government have been conducted at the alleged unmarked grave sites.
The custos of the Holy Land, Father Francisco Patton, alongside a delegation from Jerusalem, arrived in Bethlehem on the solemnity of the Epiphany at the Basilica of the Nativity. This feast commemorates the revelation of God in the person of Jesus Christ. Father Patton emphasized the importance of spiritual pilgrimages in the life of every believer in the search for God. Every year, on January 6th, the Catholic Church celebrates the liturgical feast of Epiphany, commemorating the revelation of God in human form through the person of Jesus. In Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, the friars of the custody of the Holy Land gathered to celebrate this feast. The custos of the Holy Land, Father Francisco Patton, along with the delegation from Jerusalem, entered Bethlehem through the checkpoint at Rachel's tomb. Upon arrival at Star Street, traditionally believed to be the route taken by the Holy Family, the procession toward the Basilica of the Nativity began. After a brief prayer at St. Catherine's Basilica, the procession reached the Basilica of the Nativity. This year, the Mass for Epiphany was part of the Jubilee celebrations. During his homily, Friar Francisco Patton reflected on the journey of the Magi, drawing parallels with the faithful's journey in search of God revealed in the child Jesus. He reminded the congregation of Pope Francis's call to embark on a journey to discover the meaning of life, saying, quote, "Following the example of the Magi, we also strive to become pilgrims of hope," end quote. As instructed by the ordinaries of the Holy Land, the custos recited the age-old Act of Hope prayer for the faithful's reflection. In the afternoon, following tradition, 3 friars symbolizing the Magi processed to the grotto of the Nativity, where the faithful had gathered for adoration. They distributed gifts to members of the local Christian community. Friar Luis Enrique Segovia, guardian of the Bethlehem convent, carried the golden rose donated by Pope Paul VI to the Basilica of the Nativity. Friar Alberto J. Parry, secretary of the custody of the Holy Land, carried incense to honor the significant locations in the grotto, the silver star marking the site of Jesus' birth, the manger, and the altar of the Magi. Friar Jad Sara, in charge of the friars' infirmary, carried myrrh and perfumed oil, historically used for burial rites. The friars also distributed grains of incense and drops of myrrh to the faithful. The celebration concluded with the custos blessing the congregation using the statue of the child Jesus on the throne. The solemnity of the Epiphany in the Holy Land beautifully upholds the Catholic Church's ancient traditions, providing a moment for adoration and reflection. It serves as a reminder of humanity's enduring search for God revealed in Christ Jesus. Renowned political commentator and podcast host Megyn Kelly has condemned the film Conclave, adapted from the book of the same name, calling it the most disgusting anti-Catholic film. The movie controversially concludes with the election of an intersex individual as Pope. Kelly criticized the film industry, asserting that such portrayals unfairly mock Christians and Catholics, while other faiths are treated with greater sensitivity. Popular American commentator and talk show and podcast host Megyn Kelly has openly criticized the 2024 movie Conclave, terming it the most disgusting anti-Catholic film she has watched in a long time. In her post on X, the celebrity journalist wrote, quote, "They would never do this to Muslims, but Christians or Catholics are always fair game to mock, belittle, or smear," end quote. Kelly, a practicing Catholic, criticized director Edward Berger and actors Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, and John Lithgow for starring in it. She stated that watching the much-celebrated movie was a huge mistake. She slammed the twist at the end of the movie where the elected pope is depicted as an intersex person. Kelly wrote that there were no redeeming characters in the movie and that every cardinal was portrayed as morally bankrupt or repulsive. Kelly also conveyed her displeasure at its release on streaming platforms during Christmas time. Based on the 2016 novel by Robert Harris, Conclave revolves around Cardinal Thomas Lawrence, who organizes a papal conclave following the death of a pope and stumbles upon scandals involving the candidates. In a groundbreaking decision, Pope Francis has appointed Sister Simona Brambilla MC as the prefect of the Dicastery for the Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. This makes her the first woman to hold this high-ranking position in the Vatican. Sister Brambilla, who has served as the Dicastery Secretary since October 2023, brings extensive experience and leadership to this historic role.
In the January 6th announcement made by the Vatican, Italian Consulata Sister Simona Brambilla, along with Spanish Cardinal Angel Fernandez Artime, will lead the Dicastery for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. Sister Brambilla, who previously served as secretary of the same dicastery, will replace Cardinal Hugo Brace de Aves, who led the department from 2011 to 2025. Sister Brambilla, before receiving vocation in 1986, was trained as a nurse. She was part of various missions in African countries, especially in Mozambique. Her relentless effort to provide pediatric care to the children of underserved communities in Africa made the Vatican appoint her as head of Consolata Missionary Sisters Institute in 2011. After assuming the papacy in 2011, Pope Francis has selected several women to serve important roles in the Vatican, including secretaries and undersecretaries of departments, but the appointment of Sister Brambilla will be the first instance of a woman being appointed to lead a dicastery of Holy See. Pope Francis has previously appointed 2 women to leadership positions during his pontificate. In 2016, he named Barbara Jetta as director of the Vatican Museums, and in 2022, he named Sister Raffaella Petrini as Secretary General of the Governorate, a role usually held by a bishop.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.